G'day, it's Mark here. Welcome back to the channel. Today we've got a really special interview for you. General Motors designer, John Schinella. Now, John was born in 1939 in New Hampshire. He went to the University of New Hampshire in New England School of Art. He was hired by General Motors in early 1961, and he was assigned to the Cadillac studio. And he quickly gained a reputation for ideas and also being able to sketch really quickly. Now let's hear more from John and what he has to say about his time at Holden in Australia. John,
yes.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here in your house. It's an amazing opportunity and I really do appreciate it.
And for me too, because of your enthusiasm for the product.
Absolutely, I love all this stuff. I guess I want to start off, you joined General Motors in early 60s. I'm keen to understand even just what it was like to join at that time and some of the personalities, the Bill Mitchells, the Chuck Jordans, and just other personalities that you came into contact with. What was that like?
It was a thrill to make the cut, be hired by GM and interviewed by some of the famous ones. There was Ed Gawacki, there was Jack Humbert, there was Bill Mitchell, there was Chuck Jordan. These people were inspiring. And when they walked by, you just felt it. They dressed good, their mannerisms, they were polite. It was wonderful. It was like, oh my goodness, it's like a party.
And from a design perspective, who do you feel had a really good eye and was just someone that you really looked up to?
Well, I got to tell you, there was, of course, Bill Mitchell, Chuck Jordan, Jack Humbert was the famous one to me because of the 50s, all the great 65 and on. They're some of the greatest Pontiacs ever done, and he was in charge of them as chief designer.
Fantastic. So when you joined, you're first working in Cadillac?
Yes.
And I guess early 60s, and you would have seen the 61, the Elwood Angle, Lincoln Continental. What was the impact that car had in the Cadillac studio?
Well, the impact it had is on the sales of Cadillac. And Cadillac needed a new car. And I always enjoyed the Cadillacs, even during that time that Lincoln was out, because I thought that the Cadillac had amazing quality. But we were charged with coming up with a new design. And we worked 7 days a week for a year.
Wow.
And what was interesting is the board of directors would come in, the head ones of General Motors, and they'd first go to Chevrolet, they'd go to Cadillac. Because in those days, those were the bookends of General Motors. If you don't get those right, forget the other ones.
Yeah.
So the leadership of Cadillac and the affordability of Chevrolet looking like a great car, or designed a great car, was the essence that they would come in. And let me tell you, every day we worked for a year.
Wow.
And good thing I was young because it was tiring. You hardly had a chance to date, go out.
Do you remember what you were driving back then?
Let's see. Yeah, actually, I had a 54 Corvette, and then I got a 55 Chevrolet.
Nice. Black
with the red interior. Great car.
Beautiful, beautiful. Car. And so I guess, coming out of the 59, 60 model Cadillacs, quite rounded and flowing. Obviously, the big fins in 59, it was sort of more mooted in 60.
Yes.
So, how did Cadillac go about, I guess, because I guess the response, the 61, 62 Lincolns would have already, Cadillacs, would have already been designed. So I guess what was the first year where you started to respond to Lincoln? Was that 65?
It was for their new car. The one that was quite long and the upper was small, had the suicide doors on it.
Yeah.
Very sheer.
Yeah.
And we had one at design staff, white on white. And I got to tell you, it was, to look at it, she was a beauty.
Yeah.
I just didn't feel it had the quality.
Right.
But it sure had the design.
Yeah.
And that's what we had to beat.
Right, so the response from Cadillac was the 65 model with the vertical headlights, was it? The
65 Cadillac,
the more squared off, sort of more sheer look?
Right, very sheer body side, yes.
Yeah. And what was that process that you went through in terms of designing that car? So you had to put in big hours, 7 days a week?
7 days a week for a year, a lot of design, a lot of drawings, a lot of changes, a lot of moods, and of course, getting the reviews from the corporation was significant.
Yeah.
Because Cadillac was the top of the heap.
So a high volume market leader, but also a massive profit contributor to General Motors.
And I didn't realize till later when I was doing my model train layout and I wanted to have a car in 48th scale of everything that I worked on.
Yeah.
that how many we sold. It was like 200,000.
Yeah, a lot of cars.
It was amazing,
Yeah.
the sales of that car.
Yeah, and well ahead of Lincoln and,
Yes,
and
yeah.
Imperial with Chrysler.
Right.
So let's talk about Larry Shinoda, Pete Estes, John DeLorean, Bunky Knudsen. Yeah, can you tell us a bit about those guys?
Yeah, those three you just mentioned, plus Larry, were tremendous leaders, and they were the firepower of Pontiac in its day. And then after Estes, we had Bunky Knudsen, and then John DeLorean, and they all went through Chevrolet and up the corporate ladder at that time. Bunky Knudsen was next, but that did not happen. But he was at Chevrolet. He'd come over when we were doing the Camaro, and he'd just look at the sketches. He didn't tell us what to do or whatever. He was just excited to see the development of the car to go up against the Mustang.
Yeah.
John DeLorean I had a chance to work for when I came back from Australia. And John was running Chevrolet, and he was the snappiest dresser I ever saw. He could give a speech that would curl your toes. He was an amazing guy. He had real gasoline in his blood. And the one funny thing about John, if you went to the executive dining room and had lunch, when he was done, he got up. And when he got up, you got up, whether you had finished your lunch or not, and got on the preview with the product with him.
Yeah, I've had some experience in the General Motors executive dining room. It's a whole other topic, isn't it?
Right, yes.
Bunky Knudsen's interesting because he's very close with Larry Shinoda.
Yes.
And then when Bunky left, because I think Bunky's father had worked at General Motors back in the day in Oldsmobile.
Yes,
I think
a little something about Bunky's father.
Yeah.
He was called to Washington in the beginning of World War II by Roosevelt. He said, "I need help. We need to build war machinery.
Yeah.
And you're a smart guy. I want you to go back and get Ford and Chrysler, American Motors, get them together. Let's get machinery built."
Wow. Well,
so Bunky came back to Detroit, pulled everybody together,
Yeah.
got everybody building stuff.
that won the war, didn't it?
It
Production.
saved us.
Yeah.
It saved us.
The arsenal of democracy. It was Detroit.
There you go.
There you
Yes,
go.
Yeah.
So Bunky Knudsen went, I know he was at Oldsmobile, I think maybe in the 50s or late 50s. Then he'd run the other divisions, as
Well,
you
he
say.
ran Chevrolet.
Chevrolet.
And then it was up for an appointment for the corporation, and there was...
For the dog.
Oh, okay. How's he doing?
Not well.
Hopefully,
He loves people.
yeah.
Why not?
Hopefully, we won't keep him confined too long.
Don't worry about it. We
So
beat him later. He gets the torture treatment.
with one of those food sticks that they like.
Yeah,
eating.
right.
Yeah.
Get him and he takes a bite, hit him again. Get another bite.
Yeah. Only stops when he's eating it all.
You're right.
So Bunky Knudsen, I've got a soft spot for Bunky Knudsen. He seems like a really nice guy.
Super guy.
Just of what I've read of him, I obviously never met him.
He was a gentleman.
Yeah, and he, as you said, he let the designers and the people do their job.
Yes.
So it's always a mark.
Encouraged.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mark of a great leader.
You bet.
So he went for the Pontiac job, is that right? And
To Chevrolet.
for Chevrolet,
Yeah.
and then Ed Cole.
Ed
got
Cole
that job.
got the nod, and Bunky at that time, and all of a sudden he went to Ford. Actually, this happened while I was in Australia.
Right.
And I was very disheartened. Nothing against Ed Cole, but
No.
I've worked with Bunky Knudsen. He was polite, he
Yeah.
was dramatic, soft-spoken, a lover of gasoline in his blood.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And we enjoyed him on the Chevy project.
Yeah, and so he went to Ford, and he ended up taking Larry Shinoda with him. Didn't
Yes, he did. Larry left with him and actually did the fastback Mustang,
Yeah, and the Mach
which was
1s.
very successful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Unfortunately, it didn't work out well for Bunky Knudsen because I guess Leo Iacocca had wanted that job, and Henry Ford, because I guess he thought, well, I've done the Mustang, the Lincoln Mark III, that was very successful.
Yep.
Felt like he should have had the keys to the building, and then and Bunky, well, I won't say too much, but didn't go well for Bunky, and unfortunately he was let go, and then, as we know, Iacocca got the job. So talking about when you were posted to Australia,
Yes.
how did that come about?
Well, I was working in Chevrolet, and then they put me in a small studio to do this car for Ed Cole. It was a low-budget, high fuel efficiency car, and at that time, Chuck called me up to his office and said...
Chuck Jordan?
Chuck Jordan, yes.
Yep.
He said, we would like you to go to Australia and help them out. They needed help over there. And I said, yeah. And he says, well, think about it overnight. I said, okay, I will. So I went home, told my fiance, and talked to my mom and dad, and I came back to work the next day, and I was excited about going to Europe.
Yeah.
And, went to see Chuck, and I said, boy, I'm excited, and I'm ready. And he says, good, you're ready to go to Australia. And my eyes bugged out, and my jaw dropped. I said, Australia? I thought it was Austria. I said, Australia. And my eyes bugged out, and my jaw dropped, and he said, oh, sure you want to go? I said, yes. He said, let me show you where it is. It's called Down Under. And he rolled this map, he had a globe.
Yeah.
He rolled it over, and he showed me where we are, and then he showed me Down Under, and wow. And I said, yeah, I'm ready to go. And so it's kind of funny because the small car I was working on, we had it in the ride road out there, and Chuck and Bill Mitchell were there, and it's getting close to my time for leaving.
Yeah.
And Bill Mitchell pulled back Chuck. He says, hey, Chuck, let's let John go. He's got to say goodbye to all his girlfriends and pack his bags and get to Australia.
Love that. That's great. That's really good. And so when you went to Australia, you worked on the HK series of Holdens. That was quite a bold design. It was quite a transition, wasn't it?
Right. We got there. Bob Debo went over with me. He was a head sculptor.
Right.
He was to work with the sculptors, and he was also a potter, did pottery. And we were just, they were starting the new HK, or starting something that would resemble that, and we need to get busy. And unfortunately, Holden at that time had some real stodgy leadership, and I don't mean anything against them, but they were not interested in pushing the envelope in newness.
Yeah.
And Ford was chafing at the bit, and Chrysler was going. We needed to step it up.
And the youth market was hot, wasn't it?
Youth market was hot.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
And we didn't have hot cars.
No. And I know a couple of things. The Ford brought the XR model Falcon out, which was based on the US Falcon from about 1966. Now I heard that the HK, they had to lengthen the wheelbase.
A little different proportion.
Yeah.
Which helped the dynamics of the car and its look.
Made it bigger.
And also I think there was a fellow from Australia, from America, that was over at Ford.
Right.
He came over. I'm trying to think of his name.
Right.
And he was...
so he had a bit of intel.
Jack Telnack.
Oh yeah, Jack Telnack.
Great guy.
Yeah.
We're good friends.
Yeah.
And I always said, when he came into town, the trumpets were blaring.
Yeah.
I came into town, I was under the tent.
Yeah, well, Jack Telnack, wonderful designer, headed up Ford design globally.
Great guy, though.
And was the head of Ford design, but also had headed up the Australian design studio and did some wonderful designs.
Yeah.
And then a lot of influence on coming back to the US, the aero look and the Fox body Mustang, the Taurus, all those sorts of things.
Yeah.
But yeah, great guy. So when you did the HK series, then I guess the Monaro, was that always part of the lineup, or how did that come
we
about?
were doing a sedan and a wagon, and we had the pickup. The pickup, they call it the Ute.
The Ute, yep.
And there was no coupe.
Yeah.
And we were talking about a coupe. And at that time, Max Wilson had come in to run Holden's, and he was a younger guy, a lot of spirit, gasoline in his blood, along with John, head of sales.
Bagshaw.
Mm-hmm. Those two guys were for youth, for expression, think outside the box.
Yeah.
And so we decided to try the coupe scenario on them, and they liked it.
Yeah, John Bagshaw. I worked for John Bagshaw when I was at Holden. He was the managing director, and he was a great salesman as well.
Oh yeah,
and he loved.
Yeah. Good looking, kind of a John DeLorean.
Yeah, a bit of pizzazz, a bit of I think it took a lot of the American influence as well to sort of spark Holden up in those conservative times. So and then I guess we look at things like the Tirana. So I understand you worked on the. Well, before we start on that, I want to just mention on the HK through to HG. The thing that stood out to me personally was what I would call the Oldsmobile wheel arches. It had those. They weren't to the same extent of a Toronado or anything like that, but there was a little bit of element in that design, which I quite liked. I don't know whether that's whether you saw it that way.
No, but what we had is a monocoque thing that Oldsmobile never did.
Right.
So we had that smooth sail that slid into the rear quarter, which was new, and it was fresh. And then we tried to we really wanted bigger wheels and tires or lower sheet metal, and because of the technology and engineering at the time, we couldn't get those things. Yeah. So if we were doing the car over, we'd make it leaner and bigger tires.
Right, okay. And then when we look at the Tirana, the LC, again, personally, I see a bit of Pontiac sort of influence in there, but was that intentional from your point of view?
Yes, we wanted it to have a poke to it. We wanted to have it be a dynamic front end, and we wanted the car to be dynamic because that too had a sail, did not have the fender through the sail panel.
Yeah.
But it was leaner, smaller, tighter, and we love the car.
Yeah.
And I think someone from the interior actually named it the Tirana. It's an Australian name. I think it means to run.
Okay.
And I think also a fellow in Holden's came up with a Monaro name, which we like because like Camaro, Monaro.
Yeah, there's a place near Cooma. It's a Monaro highway.
I think Monaro, it's the mountains or the peaks are the tallest.
Yeah.
So they were good analogies, and Max Wilson just loved it.
Yeah.
He said, "Man, I love those names because they have meaning."
Yeah.
So there
very
was
Australian too.
Passion. Yeah. The passion was rolling when we were doing the HK and then the Tirana. We were having fun.
Well, when you look at the plan view of profile view of the Tirana, I know you like quite lean, sort of thinner bodies.
Right.
We talked about the 61, 62 Cadillac before. It's very much got that. But the Tirana actually did have that, didn't it? Well, I think for a production.
The proportions were great.
Yeah.
The wheel and tire and body were better proportions for, I'd say, youth and fast than the Holden because we had less mass to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the Holden had to deal with 6-place passenger and all that, whereas the Tirana didn't.
It's just a two-door, basically. Like, there's a sedan version.
And they did a 4-door, too.
Yeah. They did. So, John, let's move forward into the HQ series.
Okay.
I guess, often described as one of the more beautiful-looking cars designed in Australia, particularly the Monaro, the Coupe.
Yes.
But you worked on obviously the Kingswood sedan and wagon, the Statesman, and also the Monaro.
Yes.
The different elements I could see Pontiac in the blisters over the wheels, and the Chevrolet and the taillights in the bumper on the Monaro and the sedan. Can you tell us a bit about that design of that?
This is a time Phil Smoot entered into the picture more or less.
Right.
And Nankervis was there too.
I worked with Peter Nankervis.
Yeah, great kid. Great kid. Very technical.
He wasn't a kid when I was there.
Huh?
He wasn't a kid when I was there. He
No?
was older.
Oh yeah, well, he was just a neat guy.
Yeah.
Very technical. And Phil was the think outside the box guy.
Yeah.
Which was great combination.
So you had some wonderful designers there. Peter Nankervis. But I worked with Peter when I was at Holden in the early 2000s or late 90s. Right. Just the process you went through for that HQ design. What was that like?
What we wanted to get more of the aircraft look, more of that in this car. And we used the small speed shapes, somewhat similar to what Pontiac done, but not the same because we don't have the same proportions. Yeah. And we did it over the wheels, front and rear. And we worked on that for a while to get it so it was just enough, not too much. Yeah. And made this car a little slimmer looking, and the wheel proportion was better. And this had more shape to it, which we wanted to get into the original car, but we couldn't. And
the doors, I don't know if it's a tumble home, but they
come more tumble home. Yes. More rounded shape, more fuselage.
And very thin, the greenhouse with the A-pillar was very, very slim.
You know what's interesting? Reg Hall, one of the engineers at Holden, we were struggling with moldings that were 1.5 inches. Yeah. And he came up one day and he knew I wasn't happy because it's too big. Yeah. And everybody else doing slimmer moldings. And he said, well, what do you want, John? What do you want? Tell me what you want. Show me what size you'd live with. So I showed him, and mine was about 1/2 inch. He said, well, we can't get that, but I'll tell you what, I'll be back. I'll show you exactly what you can get. So he did get it down a little bit bigger than the 1/4 inch, under 1/2 inch, and made it slimmer, which made the car lighter and leaner.
It did. It looked very, it was a very beautiful car.
He was a hard nut, apparently, but, we got to know him and got to kibitz a bit. It was okay. Yeah.
Excellent. And the Statesman, the HQ Statesman, obviously Ford had a really... even though Holden was the top seller, Ford was very successful. Fairlane was a big seller.
They brought out that bigger car.
And then later on the LTD in 73. Right. The HQ Statesman, just what do you recall about that process? And I guess there was some Cadillac-esque elements, the tail lights and even the wreath on the emblem at the front.
We needed to get an upscale look in our brand, plus the sporty look, the youth. Right. So sophisticated, the elder look,
Yeah.
You know, that, hey, I've arrived.
Yeah.
When I drove up at the golf
Yeah.
course or whatever.
Yeah.
And the other one was for the fast person.
Right.
The younger person maybe.
Yeah.
Or the older person that wanted to look fast.
Yeah.
So we needed the two markets. So that was important.
Well, I remember Bunkynson said you can sell an old man a young man's car, but you can't sell a young man an old man's car. I don't know if that's
right.
true.
No, that's true.
I've got a lot of older man's cars.
No, I heard that he said that Pontiac really had the three musketeers. They had John DeLorean, they had Pete Estes, and they had Bunkynson.
Yeah.
And in the order it was Pete Estes first, but they all were at Pontiac at a similar time with different job responsibilities. And this is when they decided that they wanted to be sportier, more youthful, more curvaceous, especially they worked tight with design staff, with Jack Humbert and Bill Mitchell. And they had a different form vocabulary in their cars than the rest of the GM line. And if you look at those Pontiacs in the 60s, they were beautiful cars. They had great form, they had great shape, they had beauty.
Yeah.
They had almost a feminine side to them, but with muscle.
Yeah.
And they're still some of the finest cars that were done back in the day.
Even like a bit of a tension in the body, wasn't it? In some of the fenders, you can sort of see that. Yeah, I like that.
Jack Humbert, this is a known thing that what he did when they came out with the wide track theme, and we really couldn't get a lot of wide track, he unsprung the fenders and the quarters about a half inch from the center line of the car.
Right.
It came out instead of tapering in aerodynamically, which gave you that dynamic wide track look.
Yeah. Now, John, I won't say you're most famous for this, but we one of the cars, certainly the Pontiac Firebird.
Yes.
And you know the development of what's called the Screaming Chicken. I don't know if that's offensive or not to you.
No,
but
it's not. No.
Tell me a bit about how did that come about? What sort of response did you get, you know, within the business and
I've looked at a chart of sales of Pontiac Firebird. It wasn't a big seller, but it was very well liked because it was sporty and youthful, especially the Trans Am.
Yeah.
But it seems like once we put the bird on the hood, the sales started to take off because that was youthful.
Yeah.
And then when we changed the bumpers to meet the government standards,
right,
the sales really took off because the cars are more modern. The front end was all in body color, and the rear bumper was part of the car in body color.
Was that the Endura front? Was that?
Yeah. Then the Endura front had to go because it wouldn't meet government specs.
Right. Okay.
So once, I'm not saying it was, I like the front, don't get me wrong, but once we got the bumpers to work for the government safety program and look good, people loved it.
Yeah.
In fact, it was 60, 64, 65, 66. We were nudging it, where it was two pieces and then one whole piece. We sort of moved, one had a black band to protect it if it got hit and scuffed. A lot of people didn't like it later in life. Yeah. But we, you know, when you have an all soft front end, you don't want to have it get injured. So then we went to all soft, all one color, monochrome. And we could do the rear bumper.
And what about the Screaming Chicken decal? Like how did that come about? I know obviously Pontiac, it's an Indian. It was an Indian chief, wasn't there? The Pontiac, and then the Firebird. There's a bit of North American, imagery in that.
Right. The original emblem for the Firebird was based on the Firebird show car.
Right.
It's like a turbine-powered aircraft.
Yes.
And
I know the car.
Then it morphed into the Bird family because Firebird.
Right.
And so one day in 70, when I first took over, I was standing in front of the car with Bill Davis, one of my good designers.
Yeah.
And we're looking at the blue stripe on a white car, goes over the hood. And the roof. And I said, you know, we need something new. Yeah. We need something that's us. Yeah. Pontiac. Yeah. And I said, well, we got the Bird. Yeah. And we were all saying, yeah, we got that. And we also knew what was going on in California is large graphics on trucks and vans. Yeah. It was a big deal. Yeah. So I said, well, why don't we do a big Bird? And wrap its wings around the shaker hood. Yeah. Wow. And
it's pretty out there.
Bill says, yeah, I think I can do that. I think we can get that. So he took a vellum piece of drawing paper, put it over the engineering drawing, and started to tape one side with the big wings. Right. And the bird head, which really kind of an eagle. Yeah. And so some people snickered, thought we were crazy. Yeah. But then we sent it to design to a graphics design, and they flopped it. Yeah. And then we made a decal. Right. And we put it on my car.
Oh, your
which I
own
had a
company
red,
car.
I had a red, I actually had a Formula,
Right.
and I made it a Trans Am with the hood and the shaker and the
yeah.
spoiler and the wheels.
Yeah.
Because the spats never fit good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I wanted to have them integrated on the body. I could have got it on the fender because the fenders were unique.
Right.
But I couldn't have done it on the quarter.
Right.
So in my thinking of design, if you mold one in, and the other one is sitting on the surface with the molding, might look strange to people. So I backed off.
Yeah.
But anyway, that car, we put the bird on it, and one warm, sunny evening, I drove it up Woodward from 8 Mile to 16 Mile to the totem pole and back and stuff, and going into gas stations and eateries, because at that time, a lot of kids were out driving their cars. They're going to these places, getting their snacks and their hamburgers and their malts. And I just kept driving through these places, and they were going crazy. Where did you get that? They asked me. Where can I get mine? Where? And these questions were unbelievable. So when I got back to work the next day, I pulled Bill Davis aside. I said, I think we got something. We got to push this into Pontiac. So then we presented it to Pontiac. And engineering wasn't too crazy about it. And manufacturing definitely did not want it.
More work for them.
Marketing wanted it. Sales said, could be.
Yeah.
And financial said, could be a moneymaker. So they had one of Pontiac said, you know, maybe John's got something here. He wants it standard. Why don't we offer it as an option?
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work, we haven't lost anything. If it works, we're heroes.
Money. Yeah. Perfect.
And it went into production. And that's all she wrote.
And the rest is history.
History's history. Boy, it's sold like hotcakes.
Absolutely.
When the bird went into production, I got a call from engineering, and they wanted to take me to the factory to look how it's doing.
Yep.
And so I said, okay. So we flew to, I think it was either California or Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
And so we walked into the plants, and I just had a feeling this was trying to unsell the bird.
Right.
So I was ready, kind of.
Yeah.
I walk in, and I see the hoods going down one side with the hood, shaker, hood hole.
Yeah.
No bird.
Right.
As they go to a dark corner, when they go away, they've all got birds on them.
Right.
There was none without a bird.
Right.
So I get down there, and the head of the plant said, John, I just want to talk to you about this bird. You know, this bird is really tough to put on, and, you know, it takes extra time, and, you know, I don't think we really need it. It's causing us to slow the plant down. And he gave me all this great talk.
Yeah.
So I stood there and listened, and I was watching these two guys in the dark on the top of a cardboard box that these decals came in. They were using as a workbench. They'd take the hood off, put it down, put the bird on, and the substrate they would throw through the shaker hood to fill the box up. Kind of efficient.
Yeah.
So I got myself together, and I looked at the manager, and I said, you know, and I walked into the plant, I see the hoods going down with no birds.
Yeah.
I see the shaker hood going away, and every one of them sees and has a bird. I said, that's cash register for Pontiac.
Absolutely. And customers want it.
And people want it.
Yeah.
And I said, by the way, these two young gentlemen that are in the dark here putting that on, can we get a workbench for them and some extra lighting so that, and they were smiling as I was talking, because they wanted to do it.
Yeah.
They did not want to do it. They enjoyed it. They were happy.
Yeah.
And end of story.
I love it. Now, we spoke before about the bumper standards. 73, you know, there was significant changes.
Yeah.
Had things like the Grand Am.
Yeah.
Car that I really like, by the way, with the big nose on it.
Yeah.
And then a lot of cars had very heavy treatments in terms of bumpers, how they were dealing with that issue. I think Chrysler put big overriders on their cars. I had a 74 Riviera. The bumpers were on shock absorbers.
That's right.
You know, almost like double plate steel, then a bumper on top of that. It was like a battering ram.
Yeah.
I kind of liked it because you never had any parking damage, but a lot of extra weight on the car made it ride better, I guess. But one thing that really strikes me about the 77 Firebird Trans Am is just the integration of the bumper bar.
Right.
It looks so well designed and so neat.
It was probably our finest hour, and we could use the small rectangular headlights, which got the openings down tighter and leaner.
Yeah.
And the surface blended into the car better because we had less of a weight look. It was leaner.
Yeah.
And it's the 77 and 78 were those looks.
Yeah.
people have asked me, why did you keep it longer? Because we went into the other look with the quad lights.
The 7980,
French,
the more the sloping nose.
Right.
Yeah.
People asked me about that, and it was the French look. You know, to have the material out and the lamp back in.
Right.
My original design was to have doors that went down on that very easily, because the lights could stay there.
Yeah.
Just need a flapping door to come down.
Yeah, General Motors wasn't big on, apart from things like Corvettes and 67, 68 Eldorados, General Motors, and earlier Pontiacs like the Grand Prix, but the 68 model, they weren't big on hideaway headlights. It's interesting because Ford, Lincoln Mercury, they were very big on concealed headlights. I'm a huge concealed headlight fan.
Me too.
Yeah, Chrysler, again, but it just seemed to be something that General Motors didn't really do. Another car I want to talk to you about quickly is the Canan.
Yes.
The Pontiac Canam.
Right.
I've got a Pontiac Grand Le Mans, which is a 77 model, one of the Colonnade. It's a four-door.
Right.
But I love those Can-Ams with the the shaker.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
Well, we did 3 cars. We did an X car, an F car, and an A car. And they were white with a red, white, blue stripe, nice wheels, and they all had shaker hoods and a spoiler.
You got a picture of that somewhere?
Oh, yeah.
All
3 cars.
We'll put that in.
All 3 cars. And we wanted to show the dealers a possibility of a low cost, great look for the money.
Yeah.
Well, we kind of did our own marketing, which you'd never get away with today.
Mm-hmm.
So what we did is we talked to sales about it, and they assigned a sales guy from Pontiac to work with me. We would go to dealers.
Yeah.
We did 2 ways. We'd first go into the dealer and talk to them. What if you could do this? Show them some pictures. And then we'd drive the cars in.
Yeah.
Then the other way, we'd just drive the cars in, all 3, and park them right out in front.
Yeah.
Management outside.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, the excitement was unbelievable with the dealers.
The cars look great.
They said, oh my God,
Yeah.
what a great price leader.
Yeah.
Look at it.
Yeah.
Stripe, wheels, spoiler, shaker, done.
Yeah.
That's it.
And those nice wheels. Well, I think there was the rally wheels, but then there was also the other wheel, what's it called?
We had the snowflake.
You had the snowflake wheel.
Snowflake, didn't we?
Yeah, you had the snowflake. There was also the more standard steel wheel. I think you could get, and then also the wheel on the Pontiac Grand Am. What was that called? It was the plastic kind of finish wheel. That one that had a plastic sort of mold over it.
They had one where we had a V8, 180-degree headers in it, big wheels and tires, suspension, really sporty.
Yeah.
This would be. Then we had the production one. I drove it to Indy for the race.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a back street that's near the back of the east side of the west side of the stadium.
Right.
Found this street, and we started to drive down that street, and there were people there gathering, partying. They saw these 2 cars and went crazy. Park here, park here. Well, so I said to my mate, I said, let's go all the way down to the end because he's a lot short of work.
Yeah.
This guy waited there. No, you got to park here, no charge.
Yeah.
Come right in.
Yeah.
So they parked both cars, crowd around them.
Yeah.
So we went to the race, came back, crowd around them. So we went into production. I didn't know this, but there was a guy that's famous at Pontiac. He got into marketing stuff and racing, and he had the company and the mold to build the spoiler.
Right.
So they were building them. Shaker hood, the wheel, the stripe, and the mold broke. So they couldn't deliver the spoiler. So at Pontiac, there's 200 of them sitting out in the lot with no spoiler.
Right.
And dealers, where's my car? One of those. You got it. When you say you're going to deliver, you got to deliver. You can't come back next week.
Yeah.
So the people that owned the mold said, well, listen, why don't we just ship the cars and then we'll supply the tail later? And Pontiac said, no way.
Mm-hmm.
So they, whatever they did, and I found out about this afterwards.
Right.
I was just beside myself because the car was so popular.
Yeah.
And people loved it.
And that's the thing, that the people buying those cars were passionate about that car.
Yes. Yeah. You can't tell them, no, you can't. No. So they sold the ones they had, and that was it. They killed the program. Stopped the program.
I've got the leaflet, but I'd like to have the real car. I think it's a beautiful car.
Yeah.
And just such a good-looking car. I think also around that era in the 70s as well.
Yeah. You need to have the drawing of that car.
I do?
I have it.
I'll have a look
I'm
at that.
going to give it to you.
Look, show it to me.
Right now. Right now.
All right. Okay, John, I want to talk to you about the Pontiac Fiero. And, that was a car that was it a 2M4 or something, like a two-seater,
right.
mid-engine?
2M4, that's the name they put on it.
Four-cylinder.
Yeah.
I guess originally a sporty commuter car. I know it evolved into a, more of a performance car with V6 and different styling. I particularly like the first model from a styling perspective. You spoke before about somebody looked at one of your designs and said, there's not a bad angle on it. I think that's always a great mark of a design and a designer. Front, side, rear, it all looks good. It's all cohesive, and it's like, yes. Sometimes
Good point.
You look at the front of a car, you say, I love the front. I don't like the back so much. But when you see, and it's a competitive car. I'll say a '69 Mach 1 Mustang. I think that's got it. Front, side, rear, inside, looks good. The '68 Corvette, same story. The Fiero I put in the same category. If you look at the Fiero, every angle it looks good. Forget, Iron Duke 4-cylinder or whatever. Can you talk to us a little bit about the Pontiac Fiero?
Well, when we got the assignment, we were giving an advanced design that was being worked on as a concept to sell the idea. And when we got the proportions of it in the studio, they had to be changed. Faster windshield, we wanted to shorten the nose, to have a little more tail, because you didn't want a big long nose because the engine's in the back. And we made a lot of movements on the side glass, and we were told to make this for a young lady driving back and forth to work. Efficient, economy car. Well, this is Pontiac. We do sporty cars. We're supposed to do sporty cars because that's our image. And so we did the best we could and put this together. And I think what was successful about this car is the drill and mill, because this drill and mill was a secret of being able to have different looking cars, because the panels screwed on the same place, but they'd have different shapes and forms. So when we got to do the next new one, the Gen 2, was the GT and the
86, 85.
That was 84, 85, 86, 84, 85, 86. 88 had been the 88 model. Just before that, for 1 year, the engineering and I decided we needed a faster look to the profile of the Fiero. So we modeled one up, cast it, gave the forms to Pontiac, and they built the car. Took it to the proving grounds in Arizona. Now, the general manager didn't know that we have done this. We painted it Porsche yellow. So we're in the middle of this big, gigantic, circular test track. Right in the middle, where they bring cars in, look at them, test them, adjust them, and then go off. And when we were there was this yellow car going around. Like, sounded like a Porsche. So the general manager says, boy, they must be testing a Porsche. And we were laughing because we knew it wasn't a Porsche. They drove in and parked it right in front of him. And he was shocked. He said, it's our car. We got to put this in production. So that's when the faster profile went into production.
Fantastic.
But when we did the new one, the Gen 2, we were able to get two different looks, all new skins, but the chassis stayed the same.
That was the beauty of that. It was like an aircraft, like a skeleton. With a hang-on panel.
That's right.
And for them to be able to restyle at very low cost. It was a great idea, wasn't it? I mean, they used that in the similar concept in the APVs, the vans, the Transport, and the Lumina, and the Oldsmobile Silhouette. I actually got a Pontiac Transport at home in my collection.
Wow. Come see your collection. But the car was sensational, and we had bigger tires on the GT. Our dream was a twin turbo V6, and Pontiac the sales were slow because we sold so many in the beginning. We were supposed to sell 30,000, 40,000. We sold 127,000.
Wow, that's a lot.
Too many. And then it kind of drifted down. Well, we saturated the market too quick. And so what happened is, honey, that's okay, he's a good boy. So they said, you have to sell 45,000 in 87, or you can't have the thing, we'll have to kill it. And we sold 2,000 less than what they said.
Oh, really?
And they axed the program. And it was a heartbreaker. It was a heartbreaker to a lot of people. But they've asked me about this. How'd you feel? I said it hurt. But when you're doing 4 cars in your studio, you got to go forward.
On to the next one.
You don't have time to grieve. I'm still grieving. missed a beautiful opportunity of creativity.
Absolutely.
Chassis, drill and mill, in different shapes.
Yeah.
What a way. A designer's dream.
Well, thanks, John.
Well, thank you, Mark.
Absolute pleasure.
Pleasure. Here,
I really
buddy.
enjoyed it, and thanks so much.
Yeah.
Hope you do subscribe to the channel. I'll send you a link.
Okay, good. Do that, please.
And be keen for you to comment. I'm sure everyone's going to really enjoy these interviews and just hearing a bit more about behind the scenes development of these cars. So thanks again.
The passion that you bring forward is the history, and when people read about the history and they see the cars, they know where they came from, and that we believed with them of having an exciting machine to drive.
Yeah.
We're part of that.
Yeah, they're more than just cars, aren't they?
No, yeah. Oh,
Absolutely.
God, yes. Yes.
Thanks again.
Thank
John.
you.
John's
Sit
graciously...
down, Gino, down now.
John's guard dog here.
Yes.
John's
watching. He's watching.
Yeah, he's watching me. John's graciously signing this beautiful print of the Pontiac Canam, which is one of my favourite cars.